Welcome, everybody, to the Crush Imposter Syndrome webinar. My name is Suzanne Longstreet, and I'm a leadership and organizational design consultant. So first of all, we're going to talk about this webinar. You're going to find out if you have it being imposter syndrome. Then we're going to talk about how you can use it as fuel if you do have it and you do identify with it. But first, I want to introduce you to Michelle Tressimer. Michelle Tressimer is the tech genius behind this webinar series. And thank you to Michelle, who is a digital marketing consultant and friend of mine, who is truly the genius behind this. And thank goodness she's running the show, because the first webinar I ever did didn't have sound. So thanks for being here, Michelle.
Of course. I actually invited Suzanne to do this workshop mostly because she transformed my life. And for those of you who know me, and I know a lot of you do, you know I'm pretty much a cynical asshole most of the time. And I think some of this woo-woo stuff is BS. But I wanted to share my story because it really was a game changer for me. So last winter, I was at a turning point. I was, and this is very vulnerable, $50,561 in debt. And I'm talking consumer credit card debt. This was not something fun like a car payment. It was a credit card, so high interest. I tried everything. I did Dave Ramsey. I did the envelope system. I tried, 5 to 10 freaking apps to help me budget. And at the end of it, I had this idea that I just sucked with money and I sucked at budgeting, and it just was not for me. And I was pretty miserable every time I had to log into my online banking. I'd have a panic attack. And then I met Suzanne through a business coaching program we were both in. And I thought, you know what, screw it. I am so far in debt. There's literally nothing to lose. Like, who cares? Let's do it. I've tried everything else. So fast forward a year later, almost 13 months later, I have paid off $30,300 and I'm on track to be debt-free this June. So here's the really weird thing about what Suzanne does. I changed nothing. I didn't download an app. I didn't try some new budgeting system. There wasn't a system that I applied. There wasn't a new workout routine for finance. I did nothing, but somehow I'm now 30 grand paid off. And it turns out it was all a mindset issue for me. So I hated money. I hated people with money. I had all these negative emotions around it. And in 3 sessions, that's all it took for me, it was gone. So now I check my mobile banking daily, no panic attacks. I love it. I love money, and money now loves me. All of that negativity disappeared. So that's the magic of the mindset work. So with that, I'd like to formally introduce Suzanne Longstreet. She is a badass at hacking mindsets, and she's got a ton of credentials, and she actually teaches people how to do this. She's that good. She's like freaking master. It's like a black belt in brain hacking. And she's been doing this for well over 20 years. So Suzanne, take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. I love your story and your background. And I specifically love how I remember the first day you looked at me, you kind of looked at me over your shoulder and went, "Do you take credit cards?" And I'm like, "Yes, we will figure it out."
I'm pretty sure I maxed out my credit card that day.
And it was so worth it.
It was very worth it.
I'm so glad. Yeah. I loved getting to know you during the process too, and seeing you transform. Because what we did is we went back and we reprogrammed you from the first event right at the beginning of your life, rather than working on the stuff that was happening now. And that's the magical transformation of this work. So thank you. Yes, I've been doing this for a long time. And before that was in the corporate world. So let me tell you, let's talk about you. How would your world change if you spoke up and shared your ideas, your genius more, whether it's in your career, your life, or your business? What if you shared your genius? What if you overcame that persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud, or not smart enough, or somebody's going to find you out, or worse, the man with the clipboard is going to show up at the door, and you could just get rid of that fear? What would your world be like if you could stop procrastinating and get more done in less time? How would your world change if you could simply let go of the need to be perfect? One of the things that I heard recently is nobody can relate to perfect. So what if you just let go and let go of being perfect? So we're going to talk today about making it stop. If you've ever experienced self-doubt, the fear of failure, you know, that negative self-talk that you have in your voice, that bitch that lives in your head, that one. If you've ever felt alone or disconnected, if you're prone to self-sabotage or low self-confidence, then you'll find this webinar will provide you with the answers to why you're doing what you're doing and how to make it stop. Because that's what we all want, just to make it stop so you can have the results you want. Well, it starts with belief. Because here's the thing, too many successful and smart people hold themselves back from achieving greater success in their role and career because of the fears that are driving them, that they have running repeatedly. Some of you might have these fears running repeatedly so often in your head, you can't even hear them anymore. They're just normal. I know that's what my world was like over 10 years ago. And you stop yourself from speaking up, from sharing that thought, from standing out amongst the crowd, from being that tall poppy because you're afraid of getting your head chopped off, or you might be found out. You're not sharing your ideas because you simply don't believe that what you know or how you do it or your skills, knowledge, experience, whatever, talents are better than anybody else because you keep telling yourself you're not enough. You have this imposter syndrome running. So let's talk about who this is for. This is for anyone who has experienced or is experiencing feeling out of your depth, who has ever thought of themselves as a fraud or an imposter, who has never felt good enough, who has never felt worthy. There's nothing special about you, that you have low self-confidence, are anxious, worried, feel failure, undeserving of your success. I'm here to tell you, you're in the right place if you've ever had any of those thoughts, just one. And I'm glad you're here. So who is this for? Well, this is for you. This is for those wicked, smart people who hold themselves back from achieving greater success in whatever you're doing, whether it's a career or your own business, anything. Imposter syndrome can stop you. So sit back, relax. One of the things that I do is I work with the unconscious mind. And as a result, I'm working in such a way to deliver you this content so that I'm going to lay it into your unconscious mind in such a way so that it creates a foundation so that you learn what you need to do to move past this. And I really want to give you some tangible tips and things you can do today that are going to move you out of imposter syndrome. And we're going to spend 10 or 15 minutes at the end answering all of your questions. And I'm happy to be here. So Michelle's going to moderate that and I'm going to answer them. If you have questions as we go through this presentation, please put them in the Q&A. You'll see the bottom, the little tab at the bottom. Put them in, type them in, because I know that sometimes you've got to have that burning question answered before you can go on and hear what I'm going to say. So put it in the chat or the Q&A. Michelle's going to be keeping track of them and we're going to answer them at the end of this presentation. And then and sit back and relax and just take it all in, because again, this is designed to put the learning into your unconscious mind so that you can have a shift today, because I'm all about rapid transformation. Ready? I am. So here's the thing. You can use imposter syndrome as fuel. It can be used for your success to improve your drive to create, to be innovative, to produce, and to enjoy your work. So that's the good news. Of course, there's the other side. When left unchecked, imposter syndrome has led to negative behaviors. And here are some of them. See if you relate to any of these behaviors. Not sleeping. Losing your temper quickly with your loved ones. Perhaps some self-doubt. Questioning your knowledge or your skills or your ability, or wondering what's so special about you. Can't everybody do it this way? It just comes easy for you right? In worst cases, imposter syndrome will lead to excessive worrying, excessive anxiety, and depression, and then really worst case is heart attack and other health symptoms and concerns. So that's why I want you to be aware of this and use it for the good and address it if you're tipping into that possibly more dire circumstance. So let's first of all identify it. What the heck is imposter syndrome? Well, it's self-declared imposters who fear that eventually someone significant in their lives, somebody who they respect, will discover that they're indeed an intellectual imposter. That's the true definition of imposter syndrome. And sorry, that's the one description, and this is the true definition according to Dr. Pauline Rose Clance. It's a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. That's the definition. So it's actually running in your brain. It's a psychological pattern. So there's some other names for it. It was first heard of and called Imposter Phenomenon. It could be referred to as the imposter experience. And another name for it is the inferiority complex. So if we've ever identified with any of those names plus imposter syndrome, then that's what people are calling it. That's what you might have, you might be known referring about it to yourself as well. And here are some of the behaviors of imposter syndrome. There's a lot here. I was actually quite intrigued when I was doing the research to see how many are showing up in here, including perfectionism. There are some people who take perfectionism as a badge of honor. I am a perfectionist. I strive for perfection. And it's actually a symptom of imposter syndrome or a behavior of imposter syndrome. That was surprising to me. Procrastination is another one. Putting it off. Oh, I'll get to it. I don't want to start it. And procrastination is often tied to perfectionism because it's that fear of, well, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. So I'll just push it off. I don't know what to do anyways. I'll just push it off. So perfectionism and procrastination are actually tied together, and both one of the biggest behaviors of imposter syndrome. Another one is that negative self-talk. And then finally, another one is the biggest ones that I wanted to highlight and bring to your attention is self-sabotage. And as you can see, there's a number of other ones here. And the other one I really like is the inability to receive positive feedback as another symptom or behavior of imposter syndrome. Feeling out of your depth, again, anxious, worried, fear of rejection. You can see them all here on the screen. So what do the experts have to say? Well, this was, again, originally created and identified by a woman by the name of Dr. Pauline Rose Clance and her colleague, Dr. Suzanne Imes, I-M-E-S, at the Georgia State University. And they first identified that the imposter syndrome when they were working with a group of graduate students and they were teaching them. And they published a paper later that decade in 1978. It's a bit of a tongue twister, so I'm going to read it, called The Imposter Phenomenon in High Achieving Women, Dynamics and Therapeutic Intervention. They first noticed this phenomenon occurring in women, and as they continued to go further and talk to more people and do more research, they identified that up to, and here's the big number, up to 75% of people they surveyed across and surveyed and studied across multiple demographics, so not just female, but men of all ethnicities, all ages, genders. There, up to 75% of people claimed that they identified with one or more of those behaviors that I identified on the previous screen. 75%. So if you feel like it might be describing you, then you're in good company, because up to 75% of people have it. And they're mostly smart people. They're mostly successful people. So Dr. Clance stated that IP occurs, or intellectual phenomenon, occurs among high achievers who are unable to internalize and accept their success. They often attribute their success to luck rather than the ability and to their ability. And they fear that others will eventually unmask them as a fraud. You may be surprised to hear who else has admitted to having thoughts linked to imposter syndrome. I know I was. This one, Maya Angelou, she's an author. She was an author. She's passed now. She said this: I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. And this was after she had written 11 books. Albert Einstein. On his deathbed, or near his death, he was confessing to a friend, and he said, "The exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler." So recently, Alex Trebek died. He was the host from 35 seasons of Jeopardy. And I was watching his tribute, and this was something that he said in an interview in July of 2020. And it said, "I've been very lucky." He believed that his success was due to his luck. In fact, he believes that not only was his success due to his luck, but other people's. Luck is a very important element in many people's success, although they don't realize it. And I'm here to tell you that people who think that they're lucky for having achieved their success is actually imposter syndrome, based on the research. So the good news is you're in good company, right? Not really what the group that you probably wanted to be involved. I get it. So if you've ever felt like an imposter, you're not alone. That's the message I really want you to get. You're not alone. Most people have felt some of the symptoms of imposter syndrome at some point in your life. So, well, how did this happen? What created this? Oh, yeah, it happened in childhood. Dang it. As a child, you often looked up to your elders, didn't you? And so as a child, we look up to our elders, we look up to our siblings if they're older, we look to our teachers, our coaches, our mentors, our other kids in school, the kids in the neighborhood. And if they're older or bigger or stronger or faster, we think that they're better. And if we start that kernel of belief to happen, that seed of doubt to happen at that beginning time, then what happens is it just continues to germinate and get bigger and bigger as you get older. So imposter syndrome is often linked to how you were parented, or how you were treated in school by your teachers, or how your siblings treated you, or how your elders treated you around you. For example, if you were told over and over that you'd never be successful, or that your grades were never good enough, no matter how high you got, then the seeds of self-doubt, the seeds of imposter syndrome will start to be planted. I remember when I was a kid, I came home and I was so excited. I brought home a test. I cannot remember what it was in. And I got 96%, which was for me a really, really high percentage. And I remember my dad going, "What happened to the other 4%? So I didn't bother to try as much afterwards. And he's a lovely man. He always wanted the best for me. He meant it as a joke. Unfortunately, how I internalized it was not joking. So those are even those loving parents, because it's not always bad mom. And I'm not here to say to you, your parents did you wrong. I'm here to tell you that even in loving way doing it, they might have planted that seed. It's how you took the meaning of it, because those seeds get planted. It starts as a seed of self-doubt, an inkling, which the decision that you're not good enough, or that you're not as good as somebody else out there, and if this thinking continues and you see more evidence, it just gets bigger and heavier and bigger. And that's what creates this imposter syndrome. And that's how it starts. And it's how you internalize those comments, what meaning you attach to them, what thoughts they created in your head that created this imposter syndrome that might be happening today. Another thing is you might have adopted the coping mechanism of self-deprecating humor. That's another way that you might be seeing yourself as having imposter syndrome, by continuing to put yourself down and laughing about it. There's a healthy version, and then it can tip into that unhealthy part. You will believe everyone else is smarter, better, faster, more talented. You may program you'll program your reticular activating system, your RAS, which is an actual part of your brain, into seeking out and finding proof that you're an imposter. So this is why you can't hear the positive comments from people. You can't hear those things because you're constantly looking for them. Yeah. What else are they going to say that's not positive? You're sifting through those compliments, not even hearing them, and just waiting for the negative. You're seeking that. That's what you've programmed your brain in. And that's quite frankly what I do, is I work on that to clear that so that you're seeking the positive rather than the negative. Here's another way you do it, is you compare yourself to others. Now, the person with the abs has worked on it harder than perhaps the person who's trying to measure it. If you can't see it, that's a tape measure around this gentleman's stomach, and he's measuring his success against the other person's. But the thing is that other person has probably worked harder and longer and ate better and done other things than the other person has. So by not acknowledging that others have worked as hard or harder than you have to create the same results. Let me give you a personal story of this one. Years ago, I remember looking at my business coach and thinking, wow, she's amazing. She's awesome. I'll never be like her. Well, she'd been doing it for 10 years longer than I had been. Now that I'm moving forward and been doing it as long as I have, I'm now able to say, oh, okay, I can see where she is and I can see where I am, and I'm measuring my success. But we often, especially when we start out, we measure ourselves, all the wrong things in us, our blooper reel, against somebody else's sizzle reel, especially if they've been doing it longer. Imposter syndrome versus the Dunning-Kruger effect. Well, I am putting out a postulate here, or an idea, a concept, that there's imposter syndrome on one end and there's Dunning-Kruger effect on the other. So let me tell you a little bit more about this. So I'm thinking that imposter syndrome is the other side of the spectrum from the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you don't know, the Dunning-Kruger effect is the type of cognitive bias in which people believe that they're actually smarter, better, faster, and more capable than they really are. So sometimes people keep themselves in imposter syndrome so that they can keep themselves out of being perceived as dumber, like the Dunning-Kruger effect, that they're really not as capable as they think they are. So essentially, low ability people do not possess the skills needed to recognize their own incompetence. That's in the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the combination of poor self-awareness and low cognitive ability leads to them to overestimate their capabilities if they have Dunning-Kruger effect. So again, imposter syndrome is one way to make sure that you would never be considered bragging for your smartness or your intellect. And you'd never be accused of overestimating your capabilities. So that's one way in which imposter syndrome can be good and can be used as fuel. So what's the hidden price or the cost? Well, it could be costing you, having imposter syndrome and the symptoms and the behaviors of imposter syndrome might be costing you some time. It might, because you're taking too long to get the project done because you are striving for perfection, or you're procrastinating and not getting it done. It might be a real cost of money. In fact, that you're not charging enough, you're not asking for more money in your role at work, or your business, and it might be sapping your energy and that you're not sleeping well. You have genius inside of you, and you have a good solution or thought. And when you don't speak up and don't share your ideas, you're keeping your genius a secret. when you're not being visible to others. It might cost you that promotion, that goal, that desire for more of whatever it is that you don't have today. And it might be costing you sleep. And if you're spending too much time making it perfect, that's a problem. So what's the solution? I'm sure that's why you're really here today, is to find out what the solution is to this imposter syndrome. And I'm going to give you some actionable tips right now that are going to move you forward. So the first thing is, I want you to balance in the middle of the spectrum, that teeter-totter that we showed earlier, between intellectual humility of imposter syndrome and the Dunning-Kruger effect. How are you going to do that? First of all, decide. You get to decide what you're going to do, what actions you're going to take. And the first thing is, choose your attitude. Is this something that you want to change? Is this something that you know you can change for yourself? And if it is, then I'm going to give you these things and give you some more advice to move this forward. So first of all is change how you speak to yourself. Change your self-talk. I will tell you, those thoughts that you have that you're not even aware of, ask somebody you love who loves you and wants to see you be successful. Have them notice when you are speaking about yourself and catch you. Speak and have you make it so that you're only saying positive things about yourself. And I love this quote by Brian Tracy. You are not what you think you are, but what you think you are. You're not what you think you are, but what you think you are. So pay attention to how you speak to yourself. Identify your thoughts. Pay attention to what you say to yourself. Pay attention to what you say about yourself. Pay attention to your feelings, your emotions. They're all indicators to help you, to give you clues and data that's going to help you change. And make sure your self-talk is positive, because every time you make a negative comment about yourself, like, oh, I am, and then you make it negative, you're actually programming your unconscious mind. So make it positive and program your unconscious mind in such a way that supports you and gives you strength. Accentuate the positive. Seek the positive. Listen for the positive feedback. Keep a list or a folder or a file of positive feedback and comments. Don't dismiss them. Stop that. Invite those positive comments, listen to them, pay attention to them. Years ago, I had a colleague, and she said to me, okay, I want you to pay attention to all feedback you get. I said, okay, I'm going to pay attention to all feedback. Then a couple of days later, she said to me, she paid me a compliment. I went, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. And I was doing the action. And then a little while later, she said, so have you got any feedback? And I said, no, haven't got any feedback. She goes, are you kidding me? I gave you the feedback that you're blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, that was nice, but that's not feedback. And she goes, and what I realized, this is years ago, I realized that the only feedback I was hearing was when it was a negative comment from somebody else. I wasn't hearing all the positive accolades and compliments and all of those things. I could only hear the negative. So are you like that? If you are, change it, stop it. And receive that positive feedback. Allow yourself to receive. And learn from your mistakes. Things will happen. It always isn't going to be perfect. I wish it was. I wish it was. But we can't learn from it always being perfect, can we? So really, we look back at the mistake, look at it. So what can you learn from it? Reframe it. Okay, what will I do next time? How could I do it differently? And move forward. Don't hang on to it. That's the biggest thing, is a lot of people who have imposter syndrome, and this is a problem for their future, is that they hang on to the things that didn't go right and they revisit them over and over and over and over again. They sleep on them. They bring them up all the time. When they go to start the new project, they keep thinking about the thing that didn't go wrong. They don't think about the 50 things that went well. They focus on that one thing that didn't. You get to define your criteria for success, or your success criteria. And then you get to let go of being perfect. Because as I said earlier, nobody can relate to being perfect. It's about meeting the expectations. Another example, years ago, I had a woman who was a self-employed entrepreneur, and she said to me she didn't think that she was successful or profitable in her business. And I said to her, okay, she wasn't a client of mine. She was a friend slash colleague. And towards the end of the year, she said to me, Suzanne, I had the best year in business yet. I said, well, how did you find that out? She goes, I finally decided to look at my finances. She had a very successful business, a very successful finance, but she didn't define her criteria for success. She was just looking for more, which we all know, if you've heard about it, the myth of more is a problem. So know what your success criteria is and then strive for that. The biggest thing is to take action, to do it now. And if you can't do it now, put it on your calendar and diarize it for another day. And if you really, really can't do it, then delegate it to somebody else who can do it, and probably better than you can because it's in their zone of genius and it's not in yours. Or, and sometimes, if it's appropriate, you can delete the task. And again, I'm going to reiterate this, but I want you to seek evidence of your success. I want you to measure it. I want you to celebrate it and remember it. Because again, the biggest thing that happens here is that people focus on the things that didn't go right rather than the things that didn't. And if it's not going well, then talk to somebody in your business. Like if you're in a career, look up, look to your mentor, look to your boss, ask them for help if you need it. Ask them to bring to your attention times when it did go well. Because even leaders, they're doing the best they can, just like mom and dad, but they're doing the best they can. And we want to have them focus on the positive aspects and bring those out. Because sometimes some people, who knows, just focus on the negative. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. So it's about focusing on the positive. So you can ask that way. If you're a leader yourself, shift the way that you're doing and working with your team and seeking what's right. Ken Blanchard, who leads the Ken Blanchard training companies years ago, said this: seek to find out what's doing right. Catch them doing right and comment on that so that people start to hear that more and more. And you'll help yourself because you'll be programming your own reticular activating system to look for the positive in others. And as you seek it in others, you'll start to see it more in yourself. So that's a good leadership tip for you now. The other thing I'm going to say to you is, of course, reaching out to me. I'm happy to help you to discern it and work with you one-on-one. But use it as fuel. Use imposter syndrome as fuel from a positive perspective. So keeping you to understand what you did right, looking for the good, reframing past mistakes. Use it as fuel, not as a whipping stick. I put them all here for you. So seek that balance between the imposter syndrome and the Dunning-Kruger effect. Change your self-talk. Accentuate the positive. Receive positive feedback. Learn from your mistakes. Let go of the need to be perfect. Do it now. Seek evidence of your success and reach out is the last one. Of course, I'm here if you need me. I work with people who have imposter syndrome. I've written a book called Invisible to Invincible, and all of the symptoms of being invisible are all about imposter syndrome, all of the same symptoms. If it's stopping you from enjoying your life or feeling overwhelmed with anxiety or depression, it's time to reach out and change that for yourself. As Michelle talked about earlier, the work that I do changes you at such a deep unconscious level. It doesn't feel like everything's different, but your behavior is totally different. And the results that you have in your life change forever. And I set you up for success forever. In fact, I even guarantee results in writing. So what I'd like you to do is, if this feels right for you and if you want to talk to me further, book a clarity session with me. It's 60 minutes. I'll send you some questions to answer in advance, so I really have a good understanding of where you are, how you're doing, what's happening for you now. And then we can discuss whether or not working with me is a good fit, or if there's something that you just need to tweak. I have worked with people where just one session with me has helped them greatly in that 60 minutes. And I have worked with people for just 3 sessions like Michelle and had a shift, and others for a couple of months. But it always works very quickly, and people are actually shocked by how quickly it works, which I love. And of course, if you think your management team needs help or leadership, I'm happy to talk to you about that too. Or if you're a leader in an organization and you think this would be beneficial to your team, please reach out and connect with Michelle or I. So remember, 75% of people have identified with at least one symptom of imposter syndrome. So you're not alone. And again, when you're not sleeping well, when you're losing your temper with your loved ones, when you're not sharing your ideas, and when you're trying to stay small and invisible, that's the time to reach out, ask for help. You don't have to do this alone. Please don't suffer any longer. Let this go. If you're here today, you've identified with it. It's time to take action to move it. So what I'd like you to do is follow those processes that I've shared with you, because I want you to have a better life. I want you to be living this life fully and completely now. So what if you did these things? What new results could be generated? How would your world change if you free up your thoughts and your limiting beliefs? If you enjoyed your work and your life more? If you spoke up, if you shared your ideas with confidence, and if you celebrated your success more often, would you sleep better? So time to let go. It's time to celebrate your success and let go of imposter syndrome, because you're done with feeling stuck, aren't you? That's the end of my formal presentation. Michelle is here to moderate the questions. What questions do you have? What did you learn? What do I need to know?
I've got a great one.
Great.
And I'm going to paraphrase this just a little bit.
Okay.
This attendee says, I think my boss is super stressed all the time and they're snapping at me and the team. Is this symptoms of imposter syndrome? Could my boss be experiencing this and tanking the team?
Wow. Yes. Sounds like it. Snapping, short, never being able to give positive information or feedback, only looking for the negative. That absolutely could be a huge symptom of it. And I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Not only for themselves, but for the team.
Right. Here's one. So if 75% of people have imposter syndrome, could it be that the other 25% have Dunning-Kruger?
That's what I was thinking. That's, you know what? That's what I think.
I think we've all worked with some Dunning-Kruger people.
I was dealing with a Dunning-Kruger person yesterday.
Oh, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. I think so. That's my theory. I'd love to go out and test it and find out.
I always get frustrated when the Dunning-Kruger people on the team tend to get more attention during meetings, because they are fearless in voicing their ideas. Even if they're dumb ideas, they do not care. They will put them out there and they're visible.
Yeah.
So who's going to get noticed by the boss?
Right?
Yeah. The B and C players.
Yeah. Or the people who have the better idea, they're smarter, faster, and more knowledgeable in it, are not speaking up because they don't want to be compared to that individual who's speaking up and talking about it. And many problems.
Let's do one more question. Well, I did have a comment. Someone loved the self-deprecating humor. That's one of their favorites. And that was number one on my list of things that I do. And I've knocked it off, and I've asked my family for help. Anytime I try to make a joke, it's like, nope, zip it.
Michelle, I'm with you. I was the worst at self-deprecating humor. It was awful. And I look back and I cringe at some of the letters that I wrote. I was recently cleaning up the basement and looking at this letter and going, oh my gosh. It wasn't until somebody identified it, one of my colleagues identified it in me, that I realized this is not serving me. This is not helping me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more question. Someone asked, do you do corporate workshops for management teams? Because they
Absolutely.
think their boss needs it.
Yeah. So I want to be really careful with that one, because you want to be really careful how you broach this, because if people self-identify with it, then they're happy to seek the answer. It's like saying to an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic, when they don't want to see the symptoms or the pain that it's causing others. So we can talk about how to bring this up to your team, your business, because it could be, if you say to them, I think you've got imposter syndrome and you need to talk to this woman, they will not appreciate that. So we will figure out a way to approach it well.
That is great.
Yeah.
Awesome. That covers it for the questions. We will be recording this and sending it out along with the assessment if you haven't had time to take it.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you, this was incredible. You remember the assessment. So thank you for those of you who filled out the assessment. We sent it out to you. Michelle sent it out in a couple of emails, and it's available for you now to fill it out. What we found is that 65% of the people who filled out the assessment, and again, thank you for doing that, 65% of them had over intense or severe symptoms, which are the two highest of the imposter syndrome complex. So 65% identified with either intense or severe. So happy to help. The first phone call is free. I just want to help you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing this wisdom. I know it's helped me a ton.
I'm so glad. Thank you very much, Michelle. This is great. It's been so nice to have you and your genius behind the scenes so that there's sound.
Oh, wait, we have one more question. Is it still considered imposter syndrome if I feel like a fraud because I don't do myself what I teach for my clients to do?
Yes.
Any business owners on here, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime you feel like a fraud, you think that you're a fraud, it can hurt. And that energy shows up and people can sense it. They can smell it. And so you want to be careful about that. And so there's ways. I have some really quick ways. The things that I talked about earlier of managing your self-talk, putting yourself in the frame, releasing the mistakes, all of those things will help you with that. And if you still need some tweaking, we can talk.
Awesome. All right. That is actually it, Suzanne. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.